Trying to grab all the groceries in one trip? Oof, not how you would have done that. You know sometimes less is more. Like when you drive less and save with the USAA annual mileage discount. USAA. Get a quote today.
Same old Here's Johnny. You're gonna need a bigger boat. So serious.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the InSession Film Podcast.
Welcome to episode 528 for April 2nd, 2023. I am Brendan Cassidy.
I'm Ryan McQuaid.
And I'm Jay Ledbetter.
Thanks for joining us this weekend, everyone, for what is sure to be a star-studded episode of the InSession Film Podcast. That pun there will make more sense as we define what we're doing on this episode. The 3 stars of InSession Film at this point right now, with JD still on paternity leave, but we've got myself, Ryan, and Jay running the show here. I guess first off, Ryan and Jay, thanks once again for running things on episode 527 in my absence, talking about your top 5 action scenes of all time, which was a great conversation. If you haven't heard that episode yet, I highly encourage all of you to check it out. But Ryan and Jay, thanks for joining once again. How you guys doing?
I'm doing wonderful. It's a star-studded event. I'm outside looking at a telescope, and who's that? What do I see? The biggest names in Hollywood ever. Oh my God. Yeah, it's gonna be
they all have stars named after them at this point.
All the stars are here. Billy Crystal's here. Kevin Spacey got turned away, unfortunately.
Oh, man.
I don't know if it's that unfortunate.
Next year.
Well, it's a fair point, but it's gonna be a great night. I almost wore my sunglasses in honor of just how bright the stars are that we're going to be looking at tonight. But
you got to be rocking some aviators.
I'm not afraid to stare at the sun myself.
Wow. You're not afraid of getting burned. Not afraid of getting burned, I see.
And also, I'm going to win.
I don't know about that.
We will see about that. And that is a perfect transition into what we're talking about on this week's episode. We have a little movie out this weekend called Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves, which we will also have a full review of sometime when this specific episode goes live as well. It'll be myself and Ryan with that conversation there. But we got to talking offline about what we wanted to do for this specific episode. And I have to congratulate both you guys, Ryan and Jay specifically, for really coming up with this topic that we're going to be discussing here. I think it mostly started with you, Ryan, suggesting us doing our top 5 movie Chris's, which would have been a really interesting conversation given the fact that Chris Pine, who got the suaveness of a quote-unquote movie star, we thought, let's talk about our top 5 movie Chris's.
And then about the Pine.
We'll talk about some pines there. And then
let's climb that tree.
That was a perfect trajectory into what I think you suggested, Jay, being, what if we did a movie draft of movie stars, which is an awesome topic.
Yeah.
I will say this. I one of the reasons I thought about it is because of how weird I think Chris Pine's career as a movie star has been.
Yeah.
Let's break it down. IMDb, pull it out. Let's go.
I mean,
the rabbit hole podcast
we won't go down a full rabbit hole because we've got plenty of other stuff to do, but it was Pine that prompted kind of this topic, which was, this guy was in Star Trek. Pine seemed to be the next big movie star, and he kind of hasn't ended up being that for whatever reason. And I think he's great. I really like Chris Pine a lot because of his willingness to kind of go to the side and because of his willingness to look for interesting filmmakers and make interesting movies, like something like Hell or High Water, which that's one of those films. That's a classic Hollywood movie star kind of movie where it's like you have this gravity to you that you're bringing to this very serious artistic movie. But then he kept doing kind of he did the side character in Wonder Woman where he was incredibly charismatic, and you kind of feel he has kind of an ingenue energy in that, and he's never fully hit. I would say he's not like a B-list celebrity, but he's a B-list movie star. right?
Yeah, and that's not a
what
knock on
made
his
this topic so
talents
interesting to me.
or anything
Right,
like
right.
that. It's more to do with, I guess, circumstance, the films that he has either chosen to be in or the films he was selected for, whatever those circumstances might be. But we know he can carry a film, and I think you make a great point, Jay, that when you look at Chris Pine, especially in the Star Trek films, that really is an ensemble cast, and as a lead in those movies, he's not trying to upstage anybody. And that I respect actors who do that despite being, top billed when it comes to movies like that.
Well, it also brings into question what does it mean to be a movie star in 2023?
We'll talk about that,
It's-
because we might have some picks there during this conversation. We talked about this offline, that maybe we'll debate the movie stardom, the quote unquote movie stardom.
Do they qualify as a movie star is something that we will definitely dive into. And I want to establish the rule right now.
Yeah.
If one person selects an actor and both of the other people claim they are not a quote unquote movie star, they have to reselect.
Okay.
If one person claims they are a movie star, then it qualifies. That's fine. Majority rule.
No,
I
that's
just want
fair.
to put that on the table.
I think that's fair. Because Jay, you and I have talked about this a lot recently. And I guess this is like an extra film boys sort of like quibble when we've died down these director series. Is that
We're not known for doing sort of
we don't do any of that.
Aside
Talking
conversation.
about
You guys
the-
redefining the whole podcast structure now? Is that what's
I'm just
happening?
saying
here?
the identity of what a movie star is absolutely fascinating. And I know that I jumped down a rabbit hole in that Ashes of Time review that we released, an all timer for sure. I listened to it.
A rabbit hole.
Yeah,
Two,
like
2,
literally
3, 4, 5 of
a rabbit hole of time.
None of
that's
them
for
that
sure.
connect to each other whatsoever.
That was a
wonderful.
multiverse of
It
rabbit
was
holes.
the
in that
best
episode.
episode we've ever done. You guys should go listen to it. But no, I talked about like this April, and I think it's so fascinating because I think right now we are living in a kind of weird, interesting like renaissance. I think of like, okay, yes, Shazam, y'all's number one movie of the year, did Fury of the Gods did
Love
not
it.
do like gangbusters at the box office for a blockbuster, but
Right.
you look at like John Wick, you look at the overperformance for Dungeons and Dragons, you look at how Air is looking, and you look at how Super Mario is looking. Like there are choices again. And when it used to have a lot of choices is when you had a lot of movie stars that were at the front of those vehicles, those original properties, or sometimes like, intellectual properties, driving those people to the theaters. And it gave audiences choices. And some of these films that are being released, they have quote unquote modern day movie stars. Some of them don't. Some of them have past movie stars. They may or may not be on our list. It's really fascinating to kind of see that like this month, there's a lot of choice at the box office. And so I felt like when Jay brought this up, it's kind of the perfect time to talk about it, because it's not like we're in a swing into like we're going back to the way things were, but the box office has been doing well recently. It's kind of good time to talk about the state of a movie star, especially coming off of something like Maverick last year.
It does seem like the pendulum is kind of swinging back to
A little
that.
bit.
Because for a while, for much of the 2010s, the box office was maybe more defined by content as opposed to movie stardom, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just its own thing.
No, it's the Anthony Mackie conversation that he had at like one of those Comic-Con things. Like,
right,
you used to go to the theater to see the Stallone or the Schwarzenegger movie. Now you're going to see Iron Man. Now you're going to see Batman.
Yeah, it's all about the IP.
And it takes away a lot of actors' trajectory or their identity, because I'm not trying to go down this rabbit hole, but if you do go look at Chris Pine's filmography, it is a wild, weird, bumpy ride for someone that I think is truly one of the more versatile like performers that we have. Can be small, can be in small films, can be in big films, can be funny, can be dramatic, can be in action films, like very versatile performer.
And I don't care how bad the film was. I kind of liked him in Don't Worry, Darling. At least it was a different kind of performance.
He gives a splash to that movie that thing needs. You know what I mean? And so it's really kind of like fascinating to see where modern day movie stars and celebrities in front of the camera are.
Sure.
Because like some of the great actors that we have working today, you wouldn't probably qualify them for this draft. Like, I love Adam Driver to death. And don't get me wrong, Adam Driver's great, but I don't know if he's a movie star. It's like a borderline conversation.
That's a good question.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
in
he's
the
been
modern
Kylo Ren,
era,
but he also does a lot of
he's
weird
one
crap.
of the bigger. He's one of the ones that is closest to verging on movie stardom.
True, but like
I don't think.
But
he'll be
has he
drafted
gotten
in the
there
greatest
yet?
movie
I guess
stars
is
of all
the
time
question.
draft.
Yeah.
yeah, that's like, no, I'm not saying for an all-time draft, but if we were doing like
Best movie stars of today,
maybe
I would say
tough.
Driver is as close to it as Pine. Is that a hot take?
Well,
I
I think maybe not because of the roles that we now associate Adam Driver with, and maybe that does give him that edge. I don't know.
Outside of Star Wars, what's his biggest box office draw that audiences are seeing?
Well, the thing about him is that you can get a movie made by saying Adam Driver is in this because of Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
And his taste is
unique,
more highbrow than you would kind of think of. But
yeah, that's fair.
Marriage Story doesn't get made if it's, they'd have to get somebody as big as Driver who.
Well, I think that's a little different because it's like Netflix too, handing blank checks over to.
Well, Netflix will give you any amount of money, I guess.
That's fair.
Driver's a guy who you can say, Jim Jarmusch, why should we give you money? I have Adam Driver in this movie. Okay.
I think, to be fair also, Jay, Michael Mann, why should we give you any money? I got Adam Driver in my Ferrari biopic. So that kind of helps. Like,
you know what? That's as good a case as any. I do think Adam Driver is a guy. He is who can you get in this movie for us to make it? Driver's one of the top guys right now.
I mean, unless House of Gucci ends up being the one that defines him in that way, but I don't know if that.
But I bet that was something that the studio said, "Oh, you can get Adam Driver in it as the lead."
I bet they also are like, you can get Lady Gaga
pro
in it too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, like getting Lady Gaga.
He's not singularly like a draw like that, which is kind of proven by 65. But I think
there are other factors there too, aside from Adam Driver.
Well,
still, I mean, the point vaguely, still makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that was a very good introductory rabbit hole to talk about what we're doing here, which is a movie stars draft. A look at what we think are the greatest movie stars of all time, basically picking our own Mount Rushmores of sorts. And this will work in a draft style. So I guess for a little context, we will do this as a snake draft. So we'll each pick one and then go in reverse and then back and forth. We'll each pick 5 movie stars. Once that star is picked, they are off the table and cannot be picked by anyone else. So maybe we'll post this on social media on our Twitter page at InSession Film and ask everyone to vote who had the best pick. So we're going to try and be a bit, competitive here, which is always really fun. And to, I guess echo something you said earlier, Jay, with regard to how do we define what a movie star is? Because there might be some vagueness there. There might be some debate there. And if there is a case where someone picks a certain name and the remaining 2 on this show say that doesn't qualify as a movie star, then that person who just made the pick repicks. So that'll also be part of the rules here. So I don't think we really have any criteria we need to get into here because I don't want us to play our cards too early.
Yeah.
The fun
we'll
part
discover
of
the
this,
criteria if anybody challenges a pick, right?
Yeah, that too. And I think we'll kind of discover what each of our respective approaches are as this goes. Now, before we get going, we have to pick our draft order.
Absolutely.
And that will be Mr. Jay Ledbetter here running the name generator to pick our draft order.
If Jay gets the number 1 pick, it's rigged.
It's that.
Well,
here's what I think you should.
Shout out to
what I think you should do, Jay.
wheelofnames.com.
Wheel of Names, is that what it's called?
Wheelofnames.com.
I think for those watching on YouTube, I think you should show that on the screen so that way we have some visual proof that he's not just going to pick himself first.
There's our wheel, and I'm gonna spin it. Spin, spin, spin.
Look at
spin,
that.
Spin, spin. And the number 1 pick looks like it's going to Brendan. It gets the number 1 pick.
All right.
So now it's down to me and Ryan. We will spin again for the number 2 pick.
Oh no! Damn it!
And it's Ryan. I'm
I
going
wanted to be
third.
on the. I wanted to be on the end.
I'm gonna be the wraparound. I'll be at the end of the snake.
He'll be the wraparound.
Right. I hate
Ryan
this.
is
How
dead
Jay's gonna
middle.
steal things from
Okay.
me.
All right.
Well,
All right,
by the
so
way,
is-
also, Brendan, you want to let them know out there, we're going to do 5 rounds of this.
5 rounds.
5 rounds.
5
So
rounds.
so we've got to be
Mount,
quick and efficient.
Mount Rushmore plus another head.
Yes, I said Mount Rushmore. That's more just in concept as opposed to 4 picks.
Mount
It will be-
Rushmore, 1 Quato.
Dang, I had Quato as my first pick here. All right, so first pick. We're going to get this going right now. This is not what I wanted. I wanted someone else to go first, but all right. This is where it gets interesting. You know what? I know I want to go back to the olden days for my first pick here. We sort of talked about this offline, like what kind of diversity we're going to have represented here. So I might go a little. It's not the one I was anticipating to pick first, but I feel like there's more of an objective argument for this individual. So for my first pick, I'm going with Katharine Hepburn.
Wow. First pick
Wow.
in the draft. I love that.
right.
Definitely on my list. Definitely on
Definitely
my
on
list.
my
Let's
list
talk about
too.
it.
Well, part of the reason why, maybe I'm going too early with him with someone that we should be saving for another pick later, but when we think of a movie star, someone is a movie star when another famous actor wins an Oscar playing that person. And of course, talking about Cate Blanchett in The Aviator, but then you look at Katharine Hepburn and her filmography starting all the way back from the year 1933 with Little Women, directed by George Cukor. That famous adaptation there, one of the earliest adaptations, if I'm not mistaken. That was 1933. And then you extend that all the way out to On Golden Pond in 1981. That's almost 50 years of movie stardom. In between that, you have Bringing Up Baby, The Philadelphia Story, Woman of the Year, The African Queen, The Lion in Winter. And now, not all of those are single-star vehicles. There's definitely some that qualify as more of an ensemble piece, like let's say The Philadelphia Story with, I don't want to say other actors' names because they might come up later in this conversation. I don't know. But sometimes they function maybe a little bit ensemble-like. But she was a draw. She was a very exotic and unique individual of that time, and it spanned for a long time. So I think just given the longevity of this actress, I think there's an argument to be made there. So that's why I went with her for this first pick.
That's a good pick. She's like the epitome of what one of the greatest actresses of all time.
Yeah.
At a time also too, she was at one point considered to be a little bit of a box office poison when we talked about it with Bringing Up Baby for a minute. But then she had a renaissance with Philadelphia Story and, a model example. I mean, like what's, great about, maybe another pick later, modern actresses or actresses after her is everyone is chasing her because she is, I think she 4 Oscars, if I'm not mistaken. And she's just considered one of the all-time greats. So yeah. I mean, this is a no-brainer.
There's a lot about the way that she carried herself in those movies that still feels very like, from a female perspective. I speak from someone like my fiance's perspective. We watched movies like The Philadelphia Story and Woman of the Year not too long ago, and there's something about the way she carries herself that just seems so desirable. She just has this poise and this confidence that is just incredible, and the fact that there's a timelessness there for sure.
Well, Jay and I talked about Bringing Up Baby last year, and just how it is an all-time comedic performance.
I called it maybe the greatest comedic performance I've ever seen.
I mean, she's known to be a great dramatic actress, one of the greats. But I mean, you see something like that, it's like she's just gifted beyond anybody's wild imagination. I mean, it's a great pick. Yeah.
But I'll say this: nobody had that first on their mock draft, so I'm very interested to see where this goes now.
Me too.
Let's go to number 2.
Okay. This is why I did not want to go second, because I wanted to see how Jay was going to play this. Jay's going hard in the paint.
Jay's going Jay.
I could go and like ruin his dreams, but I'm going to be nice because
Ryan knows who my number 1 is. So
yeah, I know who his number 1 is. I'm not going to take him. I'm going to let you have him. I'm going to be nice.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm going to let you have, I'm going to let you have whoever the hell it is, even though we all know who it's going to be. It's kind of quintessential Jay. If he doesn't take this pick, I would walk out of this podcast right now.
Well, now I'm curious to see if it's actually who you're thinking of, but we'll see.
We'll see in a little bit.
I know what it is. I'm like 1,000% confident. I would bet my entire bank account on it who it is. Watch it in like 20 seconds. Nope, that's not who I thought. I'm poor.
Yeah, I'll take that bet. Is there anything on my end? I have to give up? I'll take your bank account.
Not. Just don't take somebody else just to be like not, to make me poor.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm stalling because it's just the truth. But no, I know who I'm gonna actually take at my number one pick here. And I think that this is this is a pretty undeniable one. And off camera, we did talk about a movie that they are in briefly. Between Brendan and myself, and that is I'm going to take Paul Newman as my number one pick.
Nice.
Okay.
I mean, when you and your wife get a documentary series directed by Ethan Hawke made about you being the last movie stars, you might need to be there might need to be a good case about you being the last movie stars that we ever have. But when I watched that last year, I mean, I love Paul Newman. Paul Newman's one of the greatest actors ever, all time. Dominated an era like him and the actors of his era, they were just revered. There's just something about Paul Newman and the sort of ease and confidence that he's had. But I think also too, beyond the box office, beyond the Oscar win and lies something I think that also makes a great movie star is a good person. Paul Newman was considered to be a great human being.
Makes a great
flawed.
dressing.
Yes. But also too, that's the thing, you joke about that, but that whole popcorn making salad dressing vehicle was all done from the advantage point of how do I finance these charities? How do I finance this camp for these kids? How do I, do all this stuff? His Formula One earnings as well. The man is truly one of the most fascinating individuals we've ever had. And it's as much about giving back off camera as he is giving us timeless performances on camera.
Sure.
Then, of course, you have, name the films. Cool Hand Luke, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. The Hustler. Then Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, The Sting, The Verdict. The list goes on and on and on and on, even until something like Road to Perdition, which is his last sort of big screen performance.
Yep.
And he's still knocking it out of the damn park. And he always emptied the tank. He always did. And so I think that it's kind of like a no-brainer. It's like he's someone that I think every single actor that we know in the modern era as a movie star tried to be and have tried to be. Him and Joanne Woodward, his wife, they are model examples. And I had to pick him. It was kind of a no-brainer at number one.
Yeah, he's on my list somewhere. He was actually towards the bottom, but he's one of those actors that really did a great job putting his money where his mouth was. As you talk about some of his work outside of just making movies and the kind of person that he was, to be able to strike that balance like that is, I wouldn't say it's a rarity, but it doesn't happen as often as we would like to see, I'll simply say.
He wasn't also like publicizing it and putting it, obviously in a different era, not social media.
He didn't market himself that way, which I love.
Then also just a guy too that like had enormous guilt of the fact that as he's becoming a movie star, his wife is at home and, he directs a film that resurrects her career in Rachel and made movies with her and did theater work with her and a lot of his stuff that he did, it was charity. Like he did it to give back. That's kind of unique. We don't hear about that, or if we do hear about it, it's like an afterthought. It's not something you put on the front of the resume.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what you're saying there, I think, is unique to this conversation, because if we were doing a best actors draft, everything you said there about his charitable mind or whatever, I'd be like, doesn't matter, who cares? But when you talk about movie stardom, the off-screen stuff is part of
It's important.
package.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you got to understand that this is being a movie star is not just about yourself at a certain point. It's about what you can do for others. And it's not also just about saving cinema. That's part of it. You know what I mean? And having an enduring legacy. And I would argue Paul Newman is one of the greatest actors of all time. There's not a question. You can have
both.
that argument.
He's both.
It's the thing of a lot of these people have one or the other. It's very rare to have both. You know what I mean?
I think that's who the top picks are, the people that have both.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that will bring me to my number one. Ryan, who am I picking with my number one?
Well, he can't say it because then that name becomes known. Because if it's wrong, then
I need him to guess. He said he's 1,000% sure.
I think
we just got to be on the honor system here.
I think it's the guy that he's been watching Apple Plus movies for the last couple of years and crying over. I think it's got to be Tom Hanks.
No, it's not.
No. I'm broke.
No. I got one word for you. Lakers.
Oh, I knew it was. Yeah, that was my second pick for you.
I'm going Jack Nicholson, who I have said multiple times on this podcast, I think is the greatest movie star of all time because he has that both. I think he is such an incredible personality in and of himself. I think he's a heliocentric performer, but I also think he's an incredible actor. And you see that with the accolades that he has acquired over the years. You see that with the taste of filmmakers that he has, with the taste of projects that he has. And I mean, you just look at this career of movies that he has put together, from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest to all of his James L. Brooks movies, The Shining. I mean, the list goes on and on. You've got The Departed, Something's Gotta Give. It's just on and on and on and on. These films that he's been in.
Something's Got to Give. That movie.
What?
I love that movie.
I love Something's Gotta
Give. Yeah, he's great in that movie.
Such a charming movie.
He's got such range too, I think, because he can be so funny. I think he can be really, really funny when he wants to. You think about him in broadcast news, for example, where he's just James L. Brooks could just call him on the phone and say, "Hey, I'll give you $5 million. Come for 3 days." And Jack is like, I got you, man. Don't worry about it. I got you, buddy. But he is, to me, the greatest confluence of personality and talent of anybody in Hollywood history, in my opinion. I don't know how y'all feel about him, but to me, that's what he has always represented.
He has both of those things that we talked about with not just Paul Newman, obviously, just that on-screen and off-screen persona, but I think we can even extend that off-screen presence even further by saying sometimes when we see all of these movie stars, sometimes they're so short-lived or their careers are so short-lived because they remind us of other stars that we already know. But someone like Jack Nicholson, there is nobody else like this guy. Yeah. He is just such a unique personality. Like you saw that guy on the street and he wasn't a movie star and you didn't recognize who it was, you would still think to yourself, that guy's cool. There is no one else. I've never met a guy like that.
I didn't even mention Chinatown. My God.
Yeah, oh my gosh. What a movie.
I mean,
that's Easy Pieces is one of my favorites as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. He started out as the independent stoner guy.
Easy Rider as well. I think that kind of fits in that category as well.
It's like a guy like this.
You good man.
Of
come on now.
Yeah.
Of something like Adam Driver. You know what I mean? Where started off doing all these indie stuff, threw in a Batman movie in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you want to talk about how comic book movies got started? That movie didn't get made because it was a Batman movie. That movie got made because it was a Jack Nicholson movie.
And it was kind of marketed as that too. Wasn't he top billed for it? And Michael Keaton was second billing?
Yep. Which is crazy because it's a Batman
in a
movie.
way,
you know what I mean?
It kind of created this, I don't know if I want to call it stigma, but in many ways, Jack Nicholson created this mindset that the villains are sometimes more important when it comes to marketing a superhero movie. And he's kind of to blame for that.
But I will say this. The thing that I think solidifies this pick for Jay isn't the movies and it isn't just sitting courtside at Laker games.
Mm-hmm.
Jay's gonna roll his eyes, I think, a little bit at me.
It was that he was front row at the Oscars for infinity years.
Exactly. When Crystal points that camera,
he was hard to find as the biggest star in Hollywood for however long that lasted. Yes,
exactly. This is my point. It's the thing of Jay and I talk about this every year. When he does look back at the telecast because he doesn't watch it live anymore. He's like, who's in the Nicholson seat? Because there's somebody in the Nicholson seat now.
Exactly.
Who's the biggest star that they could get in the freaking room? And what's funny is like this past year's Oscars, while everybody loved all the wins and everything, there wasn't like the biggest. There wasn't a big like. There's the, the
legend,
the legend in the room. There, some I won't name some of the names, because it might be potential picks and giving stuff away, but like that was the complaint. It's like, where's the movie stars? And I mean, like times and eras change, but who filled the Nicholson seat is kind of like a thing that you have on your bingo card every year when you're watching the Oscars. Who's in that seat? And so, yeah. Jay, that's a perfect pick.
All right. That means, Jay, you're going again.
I'm going again. We're snaking around.
Yeah.
And this one, Ryan mentioned Apple TV Plus. He mentioned the stuff I've been watching recently, and the guy I talk about all the time. And I've been watching this Apple TV series here recently, and it's not the guy that Ryan was talking about.
I know where he
knew what he was
The guy
doing.
was Han Solo and Indiana Jones, and now he's on the Apple TV show Shrinking. What's bigger from a movie star perspective than having Han Solo and Indiana Jones?
Yeah.
I mean, no actor has a tag team of icons quite like that. And Raiders of the Lost Ark, I've said many times, is the movie that made me love movies. And Harrison Ford, even after that, you think about, he was a way to get a movie made for years and years and years. You look at even the movies that maybe aren't quite as remembered, What Lies Beneath, like that's a movie that gets made because of Harrison Ford. The Fugitive, that's a great movie that gets made because of Harrison Ford.
I guess we can probably throw Witness into that category as well.
Throw
Which is
Witness
nominated
in
for an
there.
Oscar.
I mean,
for.
obviously Blade Runner is probably in that category as well, and he made just one of the all-time sci-fi masterpieces.
I mean, Jay, a Sabrina sequel or a remake gets made because of Harrison Ford, because nobody in their right mind would want to touch a Billy Wilder original with Humphrey Bogart and Audrey Hepburn in it, but they had Harrison Ford. So
well, I mean, you look at something like Working Girl. It's like, can we get a huge star attached to this, and then maybe we can get it made? Yeah, we'll get Harrison Ford, looking as good as any human being has ever looked in the history of Earth in that movie. By the way, but he was the guy, right there with Nicholson for a very, very long time, who you could just get a movie made because of. So I'm going to Harrison Ford. Love his films. He was Han Solo, for God's sake. And then he had a career after that.
Yeah.
It is like he was the coolest guy in Star Wars. Then he made Indiana Jones. Then he made all of these great, not just action thriller, great films, but he's also a very underrated actor, in my opinion, who has had some great performances that have sort of been overlooked because of how big his movie star personality is.
Maybe even the best on-screen iteration of Jack Ryan as well.
Say that's there too.
Oh yeah.
I feel like
also played by Chris Pine, of course.
Yeah, so kind of circulating this whole conversation back. Yeah, look what we're doing there.
You see what we're doing? We're connecting the dots.
We're connecting the dots.
Because I think like, okay, Jay, a show like Shrinking.
Yeah.
On Apple Plus. Yeah, I could get made because they got the relationship with Bill Lawrence and Brett Goldstein and Jason Segel. But you add Harrison Ford to that, it
Harrison
becomes
Ford
a must
is the
see.
highest paid person on that show.
Yeah.
I have zero doubt.
Well, it also becomes like, okay, we can market this to anyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's great on it. You know what I mean? So, he's probably going to win.
Harrison Ford definitely mailed some performances in there in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah. 6 days, 7 nights, or whatever that thing is.
He made some great stuff.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, he's Harrison Ford. Like his grizzly persona is also a part of him as well, too.
Gosh, just look at the movies he's made. He's made the Weirs. He's made the De Palma.
Yeah.
He did the Jack Ryans.
Yeah.
He worked
it's a
with
great
some great filmmakers. Of course, he was in Apocalypse Now, one of my top 10 films of all time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Which apparently he was so nervous about being in that you can actually hear him stutter a few times during his scene, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's Harrison Ford. What else can you expect? It's a great 1-2 punch coming around the corner from Jay.
Nicholson and Ford. All right, Ryan, who you got?
Ugh, this is so tough
hard.
because
it's getting hard now, isn't it?
I don't think it's hard because there are still so many great names. It's picking one.
Well, that's why it's hard. Choose wisely. Do not choose poorly.
It's kind of hard not to choose poorly right now. I think there's so many great names.
It makes you lose the draft, then I guess
there's so many good ones. So many good ones left.
So many good ones here. I mean, God bless America. There really are a lot of great names.
Yeah.
I'm stalling because I'm looking at this list and going, good God, I could pick all of these right now.
We're treating this like a real draft.
Go with your gut.
Go with my gut. All right, screw it. I'm gonna go with my gut. I'm gonna take him, and I know that I'm probably gonna get a little bit of like slack or whatever for it because of his like later career, but I still think he's got the goods in him. I'm gonna take Al Pacino. I'm gonna take Al Pacino.
Okay.
I think like Pacino is. I mean, yeah, that's Pacino is one of the most fascinating individuals of all time because he starts off as more like a stage actor, and his biggest break is the greatest movie maybe of all time with The Godfather.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes on the run of Serpico, Godfather 2, Dog Day Afternoon, Injustice for All, Scarface, and then he has like a little bit of a run that's weird. Then he, has like Glengarry Glen Ross.
His 80s are terrible.
They are. But you know what? Harrison Ford's got a run in there too, where his movies aren't great.
Oh no. Yeah. No. I don't. I'm not saying that.
Then he's in like
he came back.
All these classic actors have that stretch for at least a little while.
Exactly. Because then he's in a movie that Jay and I and Brendan love. He's in Heat.
Then
he's in
baby
Donnie Brasco. Then he's doing something wild like The Devil's Advocate. Then he's in The Insider. He's moving in his man era. Baby. And then Any Given Sunday. And then, he's kind of been like hit or miss for like a while. All right. But then he comes in like, I think he's great in Ocean's 13, just coming in playing the bad guy. I think he's he's sort of lived in infamy now for the stupid Dunkachino thing in Jack and Jill. But then nobody can resist him. But then in like 2019 is a perfect example of him. If he comes to bat, he can still go it because he's got Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where he's great as Marvin Schwartz, and then he's in The Irishman, and that's probably his best work in years, and
his best work of the century for sure, of the millennium.
Honestly, and I know that this is controversial too, I didn't mind him in House of Gucci. I thought he was actually pretty good at that. He had a lot of bad things he was working around.
You're talking to one of the great House of Gucci apologists right here. So you'll get my sign off on that one.
But I just think that too, like so many actors want to be Pacino. He's also right now one of the co-directors, head of directors at the actor studio, inside the actor studio with Ellen Burstyn. And he's running that together with her. So he's also done a ton on stage and everything, but he is a massive influence on movie star culture. Like he's Al Pacino. He's got memorable lines. I mean, shoot, Jay's just doing them right now. He's doing which is the worst one of all, but still people got it in their head so much that they gave him a freaking Oscar.
It's part of the iconography with him now.
Exactly. And I mean, the other thing about it is too, and it kind of goes with Nicholson is, do you got an impression of him? Because if you got an impression of him, that kind of helps, to make you even more iconic than you already are. Katharine Hepburn too, maybe less Newman, but definitely Jack too, and Harrison Jack. Ford. You know what I mean? So
they were memes before memes.
Yeah, just if you could do an impression.
I guess that's
of
the
these
shared
people, you
criteria
can
of
make
what a movie
career.
star is. Are they memeable?
Yeah,
A little bit.
No, I think if
honestly,
you can,
kind of.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, if you can make things and be that transcend just the performance you're doing, that's kind of a big deal. And then, if people are trying to be you, that makes you on a different level too. And people would kill themselves to have Al Pacino's career, to work with the directors that he's done, to be in the films that he's been. I mean, for God's sakes, he's played one of the most iconic characters in so many different films, but like he's the Godfather, for Christ's sake. Like,
Yeah.
That's pretty big,
And what was the name of the rapper character in Tropic Thunder?
Oh,
it was
God.
Alpa and then
Alpa
Chino.
Chino.
First name Alpa,
right.
last name
His
Chino.
legacy persists.
Yeah.
Exactly. There you go. I actually really need to rewatch Tropic Thunder, because I was listening to the Big Picture podcast, and they were doing a 2008 draft, and really been meaning to watch that. Of course, there's nothing controversial about that when you bring it up online. Nothing controversial about that movie at all.
We could talk about that on another podcast. Brendan, who's your number 2?
Well, I wasn't sure if I was going to pick this actor this early or even at all, because I wasn't sure how this conversation was going to go. But I think just given how much love we gave Al Pacino for all of the same reasons, or most of the same reasons, I might as well just go ahead and pick Robert De Niro.
Are you going across the deli counter? You're going across the counter
across
and
the deli counter.
You're going across the table?
I mean, yeah, across. In fact, Ryan, you mentioned the Godfather himself. Robert De Niro, for a moment, played the Godfather himself.
Also, the two Godfathers.
Two Godfathers, yeah.
Well, there's 3. Well, there's technically 3 Godfathers.
Well, the other one hasn't been picked yet.
Well,
and we're not going to talk about it. Maybe he'll get picked later. I don't know.
Maybe he'll get picked later. I don't know. But with Robert De Niro, all of these actors we're talking about that came into their own and became movie stars in the 1970s during the American New Wave and what have you. A lot of them did have those lulls that we're talking about, like Al Pacino, for instance. And Robert De Niro kind of did as well, but he kind of peaked and valleyed more consistently, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like when you look at his work in the 80s, there was a lot of great work he was doing in the 80s with The King of Comedy and The Mission. Looking at the list here. Brazil. He was in Brazil. Angel Heart. Untouchables. And then getting into the 90s. Goodfellas. I don't have to keep naming names, but...
Keep doing it.
Even in the 2000s.
How about Midnight Run in the 80s? A total swerve.
But even so, as a total swerve, it's kind of a movie star vehicle by a literal sense of the definition.
Yeah.
And he was still kind of doing that even in comedies like Meet the Parents, for instance. I mean, it's that movie gets made because of him. That's another reason why we talk about this.
Yep.
So he kind of carried that star power persona for at least like 3 to 4 decades. And I feel like that is evidence of a movie star right there. And even with his off-screen persona, he's a very unique individual. He's very outspoken, for better or for worse, but that still adds, I guess, some star power, if you want to call it that.
It's made him memeable. That's
made him memeable, as we talked about. But then a movie like The Irishman, you mentioned The Irishman as well, Ryan, with regard to Al Pacino, and I feel like De Niro's in the same playing field. That movie is about star power legacy in some ways.
No, it really is.
Yeah.
That movie doesn't exist if it doesn't have 2 people that have like got the legacy of this genre down. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
That movie is as much about the history of movies as it is about the movie itself.
Exactly. Yeah. It's sort of a meta movie in that regard, specifically about the legacies of Pacino and De Niro. So I think that right there is evidence alone that De Niro is a movie star. And I think he is one of the best.
I'll tell you the other thing how I know Robert De Niro is a movie star. You want to know what it is? He worked with Nancy Myers. Because if you work with Nancy Myers,
it's a good movie, The Intern.
You're The Intern. And Jack Nicholson works something again.
Bad.
I'm telling you, you work with Nancy Myers, you're probably a movie star because she doesn't work with some slops off the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong.
Right. I'll say this. No offense to Ryan. De Niro far higher on my board than Pacino.
knew you were gonna try to
He's
do that.
using
I
this as like a ploy for those listening and have to
He's-
come up with
he's
their
just
reasons for
trying-
voting for
he's just
someone.
trying to
I'm not
beat me
trying to
up.
sway the voter. I'm just saying genuinely, I've got my list up in front of me. Pacino's not in my 15 that I have to reserve for this draft, and De Niro's
Honestly,
in
but
my
here's the thing.
top
Like
10.
I love De
Mhm.
Niro, and obviously I love his work with Scorsese. But for me, overall, as much as I love Scorsese and De Niro's work together,
Mm-hmm.
outside of that work, for me, like I kind of cling back to the films of Pacino more. And
So you're just talking
and
about
also
Michael
I'm
Mann,
watching The
which I
Godfather
respect.
1
Yeah.
a lot more than I am Godfather 2.
Oh,
And
maybe
so-
that's it. Maybe it's Godfather 1 versus Godfather 2, and I'm a 2 guy.
Kind of.
Although
I'm definitely a
Pacino's the
1 guy.
lead
I-
of 2.
That's the thing. I'm trying to set aside my biases for the Godfather saga, if you will, because I definitely prefer
Well,
the first
yeah.
Godfather over part 2. But
Yeah.
it-
I will
But
say
also,
that
as a, I think about. I mean, you talked about the Scorsese stuff, but Casino is one of my all-time favorite.
Yeah.
Scorsese. How about Jackie Brown? How good is he in Jackie Brown?
Great.
my
Jack.
favorite Tarantino film.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying they both, you know.
Yeah.
Excuse me,
Hollywood.
did somebody say Joker? Hello.
No, because he was in, no, of course. No, but also too, like Taxi Driver and
Yeah,
you know,
classics.
and even his turn in Cape Fear. It's such a wild turn
Well,
for him.
the thing about Pacino
It's
is,
so
to
great.
me, the difference between Pacino and De Niro is that Pacino doesn't have the Brazil. He doesn't have the Jackie Brown, to me.
No.
Right?
Well, I mean,
De Niro in Jackie Brown is a much bigger part than Pacino.
yeah,
in
I know.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
I know, but like for me, like I mean, they're kind of it's
Pacino
kind of
doesn't have a
one-
midnight
one-
run.
Good movie.
No.
Really good movie.
Really good movie.
Yeah, no, but then like I mean, we're splitting hairs here. They're both great. I'm not gonna.
No,
do
they're
this.
both great, but I'm just saying.
I'm not doing this tonight.
All right, let's
Well,
snake
that's
around.
why-
Brendan,
And
who's
that's
your
why
next
I
pick?
picked De Niro. But anyway, okay, snaking
go to
back
round
around,
3.
it's my number
Can't
3
believe you
pick
did
now.
this.
Now my number number 3 pick here rather, and oh my gosh, let me look at my list. Let me look at my scratch list here to see who I want to go with for my next pick. I've got so many on reserve I want to talk about, and I have no idea if they'll get picked by one of you two. Yeah, I'm having a battle between my head and my heart. I'm going to go with my head here and go with someone that I think is very top of mind right now. You know what? You know, a movie star is a
Zachary
movie.
Levi.
Exactly. Yeah, complaining
So
so,
good, Jay
heavily
couldn't
about
even get
the
his
state
name
of
right.
family movies. He's got to be careful with how much he calls Shazam a family movie, because the last I checked, the Fast and Furious movies have that term trademarked. So
Hey,
I don't know what they're doing about that.
Him going after John Wick was enough for me to say no, thank you to my list.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Anyway, okay. So you know a movie star is a movie star when they work within either a big franchise or a movie from a big director, whatever. And when you go to see that movie, you don't say to yourself, oh, I'm going to
I know
see
who
the
you're
new
going
Christopher
with.
McQuarrie movie. No, you
Yep,
say I'm
yep,
going to see
yep,
the new
yep,
Tom
yep.
Cruise movie.
Big Tommy C.
Yeah, so I'm picking Tom Cruise for my next one. And
Right.
he's been kind of a movie star since the late 80s, if you think about it, with Rain Man. And
Before that, how about?
well, yeah,
Top
before
Gun?
the Risky Business, Top Gun.
Risky Business.
Yeah, absolutely. In many ways, I guess that kind of kick-started his literal stardom in many ways. And again, talking about people that have this persona, this presence off screen, in some cases with Tom Cruise, maybe not necessarily for the better. I mean, he does
He
have a bit
definitely
of
had an era there where he was a little wayward as well.
a little
They
couch
all
jumpy,
do,
I guess you can say. But he's very eccentric, and you know a movie star is doing something right when a performance like Tropic Thunder is what gets you to think this guy's good. Let's reconsider him as a great movie star. And I think that's the one thing I love about Tom Cruise is that when you look at movie stars like this, he is the one that most, I guess, is the most self-aware of not taking himself too seriously at times, and also really trying to be daring with his stardom, especially with regard to the Mission Impossible franchise and what it's doing
Post
now.
couch jump for sure.
Post couch jump, I mean, he might have the biggest resurgence of any movie star, I guess, if you want to, from at least the way that the public eye perceived him.
Mhm.
But with that, you go to see a Tom Cruise movie when you see a movie that he's starring in.
That's fair.
And that I think is a sign of stardom. So yeah, Tom Cruise, very top of mind. We'll see him do more base jumping and death-defying stunts in July, I think is when Dead Reckoning comes out. But yeah, he's cruising. He's cruising to stardom.
Here is what I will say about this. First of all, screw you, Brendan, for taking it. But second of all, is I wouldn't say I am looking forward to the next Christopher McQuarrie film. I would say I'm looking forward to the next Mission Impossible.
You're an IP.
Yeah,
boy.
okay. You're putting words in my mouth with that. I'm using that just saying as an example.
I'm not saying all the Tom Cruise movies out there that I would go see, but he's got a great track record. Okay, so I you know, like, and I do think that he is one of our last few we have left. Yeah. And he sure showed it this past year for sure. I wish though that he would balance like he used to.
See, this is my point as well.
This is that I wish he would do big projects, you know, with that aren't just produced like he's honing in with people that he trusts. I wish he would work with some of the bigger names in Hollywood. I also think too, he used to with Kubrick and Spielberg and things of that nature. I think the other thing too in PTA,
I guess,
even in a movie like I don't like Lions for Lambs, at least he's working with Robert Redford, someone he's idolized his entire life. Like he's taking a chance, he's putting himself out there. Like I don't like that movie at all. It's not particularly.
You want him to work for a great filmmaker we all love, like a Bryan Singer.
No,
but it's like does that criteria there help define more stardom then? Because I don't think it necessarily does.
See, this is the hybrid that my theory is. This is the Nicholson. This is the Newman, where there is a balance between the incredible stardom and also the ability to give yourself over to a great piece of art. Right?
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah, and maybe there's also maybe we can also add a third argument to that. And with regard to Tom Cruise, if we're looking at the other end of that spectrum, the overarching power that a star has to basically act as full-on producer for your movie, which is what he also does. It's like there are like two paths that I guess you can look at here that have their own validity. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, but in my mentality, being that you're talking about, Brendan, where it's like every movie I'm in has to be a me movie. To me, I really think Tom Cruise was a better movie star in the 90s and early 2000s than he is now.
Yeah.
Where every movie has to be a Tom Cruise movie. I have to be the good guy. I have to be the hero. This is all about showcasing me as a performer. I'm not going to give myself over to a director the way I did with something like Magnolia, where I was giving this very controversial performance or kind of being something that I've never been before, or a Stanley Kubrick, which may or may not have led directly to his divorce. So I kind of understand why he doesn't do that anymore. But that's what he used to do. Yeah. Or a Born on the 4th of July, where he's like, I want to have this big role. I'm giving myself to you so that I can win an Oscar, which is kind of a cynical way to make a movie. But it led to great results, I think. So Tom Cruise is in my top 10 easily. He might have been my next pick, but that's the difference between
it's a very
tippy top.
Yeah, that's a fair point. It's a fair point.
No, I think like the thing about Cruise is that this is something I think you could like I'm not saying he's not a movie star, but he should have been in the Nicholson seat at the Oscars. And why wasn't he there? Because he doesn't want to because he doesn't want to open up about his life, and he doesn't want to talk about any of the Scientology. And I think a lot of that is that stubbornness. That's a little bit that, that you see in like the old interviews where he used to get kind of ruffled up and angry about. And that's why he won't work with a lot of these up and coming directors. He says he doesn't want to give over control nearly this much. And it's a little bit safer. Not to say that like jumping out of an airplane and all this other crap that he's doing in this Mission Impossible movies is not safe. It's a different
kind of star, or it's a different kind of approach to stardom.
Yeah, it is.
I'll say. It is very calculated.
Well, he was the tabloid. He was the tabloid guy for like 5 years. And
but like at a time
not wanting to do that anymore.
But it does feel weird.
So he's living up in Xenu's Tower. now, where he doesn't have to.
But I think, but it's kind of weird that at the time in which somebody quote unquote saves cinema and is the biggest movie star on the planet, they only go to like one lunch and one thing and basically like use their next movie as an excuse instead of being embraced at the time where this could have been like the time where we are just seeing this guy getting embraced even to the next degree. It could have taken him even to another level, because even other movie stars of this era have done press or have done celebrations and things of that nature. Like it is a little bit of a weird thing from that angle, but he is definitely like one of the 2 or 3 remaining movie stars we have left.
For sure.
And I think that's a strong criteria there, is that the idea of the movie star, we sort of talked about this with regard to Chris Pine and that early conversation kickstarting this. Yeah. The idea of the movie star, it's not like a dying idea, but it's not as widely seen in box office results specifically. So with a name like Tom Cruise being one of our last remaining ones, that's kind of important. It's kind of a big deal.
He also, I guess the best way to say is he's still kind of an enigma. And because he doesn't open up, because he knows where the body is. So
and there's an argument to be made that that's a good thing or a bad thing for a movie star. But as far as movie stardom is concerned, I guess you could say that Tom Cruise is one of the last samurai, perhaps.
Oh my good God! Oh my good God! No, I'm just going to transition to my next pick. I'm not even going to respond to that.
That was cute.
That might have been the stupidest thing you've ever said on this podcast. I mean, good God.
All right, Ryan, what's your next pick?
I think I'm going to take. Brendan took an actress like that you could argue is the greatest actress of all time, and I'm going to take the person that you could argue is the person that she would, if you are going to have a debate about, you put her up against Katharine Hepburn, and that is I'm going to take Meryl Streep. I think
you're going to hear the exact same complaints I have about Tom Cruise making every movie a Tom Cruise movie as I have with Meryl.
Yeah, but like,
just pause the video, rewind a bit, you'll see exactly his argument once again.
Yeah, but also like, okay, so she makes some Meryl Streep movies for sure, but then she's also like a supporting player in a bunch of stuff that we also like too recently. But then she also is like, she's got this ability to, she works with whoever and whatever for any project, good or bad, but mostly great. Like, I mean, even if you look at like right now, she's going to do Only Murders in the Building, but she's did a Soderbergh film, Let 'Em All Talk. And she was in Little Women, and she was in the Mamma Mia movies, which are very successful. And she was in The Post, which everybody loves The Post. And, for every Florence Foster Jenkins, you get, you get an It's Complicated or a Fantastic Mr. Fox or a movie I like, Doubt, or you get a Devil Wears Prada in there, or you keep going down the laundry list of things that she's done. I think that is something though, Jay, that if you are someone that is making a brand of film, like, oh, that's a Meryl Streep film, that's a Tom Cruise film, that's a such and such film, that means that you've gotten to a place throughout your career where you can get to that point where people are making movies specifically for you. And she's not just specifically making like rom-com, she's making dramas, she's making thrillers, she's making satire, she's making all these different things. And she's not always the lead in those things, but at one time she was the lead in all those things. And she had an amazing, and she's one of the most Oscar nominated, and she's won 3 Oscars, probably going to win another one by the time we're all gone. And she
probably got nominated for an Oscar while you've been talking.
Exactly. Yeah. And she is also another one of those people that has sat in the Nicholson seat over the last couple of years when she got nominated.
Yeah.
As she is the biggest person in the damn planet. She is, when you say who is the greatest living actress alive, people will say Meryl Streep, number 1, hands down. And some will argue she's the greatest actress of all time. And she also worked with Nancy Meyers on It's Complicated, because Nancy Meyers knows how to cast frickin' movie stars.
This is another criteria. Were they
Katharine
in
Hepburn
a Nancy
was
Meyers
never
movie?
in a Nancy Meyers movie.
No,
nope,
she was not.
I'm just
what
saying.
a shame. You know what I mean?
You missed out.
What a shame. But yeah, Meryl. So I mean, that's the other thing too. You could either say like, you just be like, yeah, it's Meryl. You don't even have to like say Streep. You can
that is really all you have to say. I mean, Meryl's fantastic. If
great actress,
she definitely would have been drafted by me at some point here. I mean, you mentioned a ton of great movies there. How about Bridges of Madison County? Maybe.
Oh,
I love that movie.
Clint Eastwood's best directorial film.
That movie.
Well, I mentioned
De Niro in Deer Hunter.
I was just gonna say the Deer Hunter. I don't love the Deer Hunter, but I actually think she might be the best thing in the Deer Hunter.
Yeah, I don't love that movie either, but she's wonderful in it. How about Adaptation? I love that movie and her in it, and that's a movie where she is like, yeah, I'll be in here for like a little bit, and I'll give your movie some legitimacy, and I'll go to the producers and say I believe in this thing, and I'll get it made. I love that about her participation in that movie.
But like something like Death Becomes Her.
Death Becomes Her. I mean? Yeah, totally.
It's just like a fun movie that she gets to do, or I think of.
Well, that's a her, and that's brute. Yeah, there's a bunch of people kind of.
I don't know if you guys have ever seen if you guys have ever seen what is it, Heartburn with her and Nicholson, but that's a great little gem in there. And Silkwood
Jack Nicholson,
and Sophie's Choice, obviously, like I mean, like literally,
Kramer. I mean, she's
you made a movie in which you've become like a phrase, like that's a real Sophie's Choice, like
yeah.
Who's Sophie, and it's her, and then
who can forget her wonderful performance in The Laundromat.
I'll never get that final shot out of my head.
That is
that Lady Liberty shot. Is that
one of the most embarrassing
shot?
Final shots of a movie in recent memory?
It's at the very least the worst final shot in any Soderbergh movie.
Yeah,
I think I agree with that.
Yeah,
it's got to be up there. Yeah, I mean, but no, it's Meryl Streep, guys. Come on.
Yeah. Well, let's keep going.
Also,
go ahead.
Also, one more thing, just got to say, and this is something I just got to get off my chest because I've never said this before on a podcast. But the only reason I ever watch Julie and Julia is so that I can watch the Julia Child parts that Meryl Streep is in, because that is a fantastic movie with her and Stanley Tucci. The other half of that movie with Amy Adams is garbage. So, it's great when you're doing an over-the-top performance like that. You got impeccable chemistry with Stanley Tucci. Like only Meryl Streep can do that. And make an other half of that movie, which is unbearable. And I just can't get through it. I have to fast forward through it.
You realize
just Meryl Streep parts.
You realize people are going to be listening, and then they're going to formulate their own thoughts and say, "Oh God, I heard Ryan McQuaid say he hates Amy Adams." So
that's fair.
You ready for that?
It's not like she's going to be drafted today. Look at her laundry list of the last 10 years.
That's such a shame. She's so talented.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's
get a new agent.
Let's keep going, Jay. Let's finalize these third round picks with your next one.
All right. How about one of Meryl Streep's co-stars in a film?
Oh, I know where you're going with this. I think I know where you're going with this.
Okay. All right. Meryl Streep was in a remake of a fantastic film called The Manchurian Candidate.
You son of a bitch.
I kind of thought this
son
was
of a
happen.
bitch.
Yeah.
From
How dare you?
Director
How
Jonathan
dare you?
Demme.
Yeah.
You better be taking Liam Shriver, you son
And
of a
she, of course I am talking about everyone's favorite movies. I'm taking Denzel, man. I'm taking Denzel.
Yeah, I knew this was. I thought this was coming.
You guys have given
your
me
your Spike Lee movie series kind of made me think one of y'all was going to take this one.
You've given me the top three on my board. These are the top three on my board: Nicholson, Ford, Denzel.
We're making it easy for you.
No kidding. I mean, Denzel. What can you even say about this guy? The most recent introduction of any of the performers that we've had in this draft so far, but you look at the impact that he has made. You want to talk about a guy who it's like, this movie is getting made because it's a Denzel movie. And they still turn into kind of not specifically that kind of movie, but a very fascinating film. I mean, how about Ryan? Ever heard of Malcolm X? Do you like that movie?
Go to hell.
But
don't even.
But you go back to his early Renaissance with something like Glory, and then you look at all the incredible films he's done with Tony Scott, which are those are movies that get made first and foremost because they are Denzel movies, and they're elevated because of the relationship between Tony Scott and Denzel. I mean, talk about Man on
Nepotism,
Fire,
too.
Unstoppable,
Good job,
Deja Vu. Go look at Philadelphia, another Demi. I mean, just incredible stuff there. Obviously, he got the Oscar for Training Day. This is a man who has such incredible relationships with great filmmakers like Spike Lee, he's made, Inside Man. You look at that film where he's like, I will give you my gravitas to this film so that we can get it made and make it great. Yep. Denzel is the ultimate team player and also a superstar in and of himself. So he's my pick here in round 3.
This was the one I was toying with. Do I pick Denzel or Tom Cruise? And I went with Tom Cruise. And I'm kind of kicking myself now because I really wanted Denzel on my list. Dang it. Good actor. Great movie star. Gentlemen, how much do you like coffee?
Love it. Yeah. I'm a coffee fiend. The best part of waking up is coffee cult in your cup.
I'm glad you didn't mention another brand there. Instead, you mentioned the right brand that we're talking about there, Coffee Cult. And what makes them great is that they source only specialty grade Arabica coffee beans from 50 countries around the world. They inspect each bean and only select the highest grade. So for those of us that actually like the taste of our coffee, that's what we want. Isn't that right?
It's good. Yeah. No, it's good. I mean, like I need to be a little swayed over here. I'm a little down on coffee right now. Like I need like a premium bean. Maybe something like a various blends, Brendan, because the same thing I've been drinking the last couple of weeks, not from Coffee Cold. It's not been bueno. It's not good. And I've been very disappointed because I need my energy in the morning.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Well, and it needs to taste good, right? I mean, that's the thing about coffee. It's an art, the making it right.
Yeah, I don't like to just like taste it, like I'm, because I live in my house. Okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes I gotta have coffee.
We all live
in our house.
I don't want it to be like, in like some sort of Maxwell house or anything. You know what I mean? Like I want it to be a premium bean that can get me jolted, but also just taste fantastic. You know what I mean? I don't want it to taste like burnt beans or anything like that, or weird beans. You know what I mean? Like I want something of quality.
And the beauty of Coffee Cult is that they do not ship stale coffee that's been sitting around for days or even weeks at a time, like you get with those store-bought brands, those drugstore brands that are sitting there for so long, loaded with preservatives to keep them there as fresh as possible. So that way, what bag you receive at your door, it's guaranteed to be extremely fresh.
Did you say coffee. Guaranteed?
Yes, guaranteed. Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow. Not many things in life are guaranteed.
But this is.
That sounds pretty good.
This is. And if you want something guaranteed, for those of you who are coffee drinkers, like I'd say at least 99.9% of America is at this point. It might be a bit of a hyperbolic statement, but the point still stands. We have at Coffee Cult a various selection of coffee blends that you can pick at coffeecult.com, and you can get 15% off using the code ISF. That is capital I, capital S, capital F to get 15% off your order at coffeecult.com, and that is Coffee Cult with a K. KOFFEEKULT. The InSession Film Podcast is brought to you by our great friends over at the First Time Watchers Podcast. Gentlemen, we are in the middle of our movie stars movie draft. And I feel like we should be kicking ourselves for not including any of the members of the First Time Watchers in our draft just yet. Maybe that'll change, but needless to say, there are a bunch of movie stars on that show, and they're a podcast you have to check out.
They are certainly stars, and while you won't see them at your local Cineplex, you can always hear them in your earphones, your AirPods, your over-ears, whatever you're using. But you've got to listen to them because it's a podcast you really need to check out. It's hosted by Tim, Walter, and Hermano, and let me tell you, they really know their movies.
They do. And on their latest episode, as they count down to episode 500, getting close to that final episode, that's something y'all need to know. They're calling it quits pretty soon. This is episode 483 that they just released. They're getting close. This is sad. This is a sad day because we keep on trying to push them to not call it quits, but
don't do it.
Needless to say, they're having great episodes leading up to that. And on this weekend's episode, they talked about Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, the classic film there with Poitier, Katharine Hepburn, and Spencer Tracy. They had a great conversation on that film and really dissected what that film ultimately is all about.
Yeah, and that was a great conversation. And that's what's so unique about their show every week. They pick out a movie that neither one of them has seen yet, or which could be new or old or something on like a list of shame. Like we all have lists of shame.
We do.
I don't want to get into Jay's list of shame. That's a long podcast for another day. But they'll review it with a modern lens and fresh perspective, which, I hope that they don't leave because I love that perspective and it's what makes for a great movie podcast. They also give quick thoughts on movies they've caught up with, as well as some trailers and other things that may be worth noting.
All movie-related, great movie-related content. And stay tuned at the end of their shows. They'll give out some very special movie recommendations to close things out. The show is just very smart. It's very sharp. It's very starry. The starry eyes all abound when it comes to their show. So, gentlemen, where can you find these guys on the internet?
You can find them a couple of ways. I would go check them out at firsttimewatchers.podbean.com, or you can also hit them up on Twitter at firsttimewatchers and on Facebook. Just search First Time Watchers.
You can also subscribe to them on iTunes, Apple Podcasts. Go leave them a review. That's very important. While you're there, when you're leaving that review, let's leave a little hashtag there to let them know that we're the ones that sent you to them. This week, let's think. What's a good hashtag? FTW our stars? Something like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's
W to the stars.
To the stars. I love it. So that way they'll know that we sent you to them. We promise their show is worth your time. Again, that is First Time Watchers.
Ryan, do you like Denzel?
I hate you. Don't talk to me.
I was going to say he likes Denzel, but hates Jay Leno.
I'm not doing any more movie series because then you get good freaking ideas, you snake.
Oh, and speaking of snaking, let's go to our fourth round picks just to get the burn off of this.
Just do it, Jay. Do whatever you're gonna. Just take the knife out of my back.
Okay, I guess I'll get my number 4 if I really have to. I'll keep going down my list here, and this is the one that Ryan thought I was going to take first.
Yep,
Tom Hanks, guys. Come
America's
on,
Dad.
this guy was a box office guarantee for years and years and years. You look at what his career has been.
Yeah.
How about being the name that you wanted to see on a movie poster for over a decade? You look at how he started with something like Big, jumping on the scene as one of the great comedy performers of his generation. and then gradually morphing into something like Saving Private Ryan, being one of Spielberg's go-to actors. And who knows what will sell better than Steven Spielberg. And so when Spielberg and also Robert Zemeckis, you know, those Spielberg and Zemeckis have always been kind of tied at the hip to a certain degree. They say, yeah, we'll give you Forrest Gump, Saving Private Ryan, Castaway. Let's throw in the Terminal and Bridge of Spies and The Post and all sorts of other stuff. And oh, by the way, would you like to be the voice of one of the defining characters in the history of animation, Woody the Cowboy?
Yeah.
This is a guy who has just come to be one of the defining figures in the history of cinema, I think. He really, truly is. And he has kept working over the course of his career. We're going on 40 years now of him being a star. And he still is a guy who, you look at something like, whatever you think of the film, I actually think it's a pretty good movie. A Man Called Otto. You want to talk about a movie that doesn't get made unless Tom Hanks is in it.
Yeah.
That is purely sold on Hanks. And guess what? It did pretty well. That movie did pretty decent business, and it's because of Tom Hanks. Also, he was in Finch, a movie that made me cry a lot a couple years ago that nobody saw. Go watch Finch. Go watch Finch, people.
No, kick that robot in the frickin' head.
I still have not seen Finch. How about I know with Jay becoming a dad now, he's developed new emotions.
I saw that one pre-dad, and it was still
you were kind of getting mentally.
Jay, how was he in?
Maybe.
How was he in Robert Zemeckis' Pinocchio?
Oh my gosh, you talk about transcendent. I mean,
that
is a film. Never before has a CGI puppet looking at horse poop affected me in the way that it did in that movie. I mean, and then you have Tom Hanks, who clearly spent like multiple hours on set, and you can feel those hours just weighing on him.
There are times, at least in the opening minutes, where I thought that level of exhaustion kind of benefits this iteration of Geppetto, but then it gets tired real quick, especially where that movie goes. I think the first 5 minutes are not bad in that movie, and then the rest of it's just trash.
That's high praise.
It's high praise, yeah. It's the difference between a half star out of 5 versus 1 out of 5.
Yeah, I'll tell you this week, Tom Hanks was the most like relevant this week that he has probably been this year so far, because the new trailer for the Wes Anderson film Asteroid City came out, and it sparked like this whole giant conversation because this is his first iteration or first performance in a Wes Anderson film, and it sparked the conversation. It was like, Tom Hanks looks so great in this movie with Wes Anderson. What other great actors should we have be in Wes Anderson films too? And it like sparked this like couple of days debate about like who it should be. And it all sparks from the fact that like, he's probably only going to be in the movie like 10 or 15 minutes. Maybe it looks like more like Schwartzman's the lead.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
But it's also like,
but that speaks to his willingness again to be a team player.
I was just going to say, calm down. Is that it
You're talking about my draft pick here. I got to defend my pick, Ryan.
I'm defending your pick because I think.
Oh
it's
my
a great
God!
Pick
Don't make me come over there.
But then also too, you know, he's got to go back in that well after he makes like, you know, some of these bad movies, and got to go make that Toy Story 5 that everybody's looking forward to. So there you go. You know?
Do we even know if he'll be in Toy Story 5? I mean, what if this is?
I guarantee he'll be in that movie.
That could just be the Bonnie Adventures.
No, that's
that'd be weird and interesting, I guess.
That's going to be the, hey, why isn't Woody in this movie? Yeah, because it worked out the last time that the Pixar team really screwed up the iconography of the Toy Story universe.
Oh, with late.
If I could just say one last thing regarding Tom Hanks.
Absolutely not.
Elvis, play the Christmas song.
Oh my God. All right. Okay.
All right. Tom Hanks, good actor.
Santa Claus.
All right, shut up.
Ryan is still sore over the loss of Denzel, and I don't think he's over it yet.
No, I want Jay to shut up the rest of the night.
Movie drafts. They'll end friendships.
Okay. So I didn't get Denzel Washington. Which is like, I mean, it's fine. You can just like watch Equalizer movies. It's not like there's like any real substance there or anything. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna finish out my duo. I got Paul Newman. I'm taking Robert Redford. I'm taking Robert Redford.
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
You're damn right. Okay, because not only do I have a movie star, okay, one of the great movie stars of all time, like Robert Redford, also not a bad looking dude. Okay, like
One of the greats in that regard.
Just my God, that's the other thing about movie stars. They gotta look good too, a little bit at a certain point in their era. And I mean, okay, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Downhill Racer. If you ever seen it, it's great. Jeremiah Johnson, The Candidate, The Way We Were, The Sting. His version of The Great Gatsby is the best version of The Great Gatsby. That's not saying much, but that's just the fact. 3 Days in the Condor, All the President's Men, Electric Horseman, Brubaker, The Natural. Should I keep going? Sneakers, A River Runs Through It. He made Demi Moore and Woody Harrelson break up over $1 million check because he's so fucking sexy. Okay. All right. Spy Game, him and Brad Pitt. Good movie. All right. All Is Lost. Good. His turn in Captain America, one of the Civil War, Winter Soldier, one of the best MCU movies, period. Pete's Dragon, a movie that makes Brendan, Jay, and everybody else here cry. All right.
That movie almost ended my relationship with my fiance.
Exactly. And then The Old Man and the Gun, which is...
That's a movie that doesn't get made unless you are one of the all-time movie stars in history.
Legacy movie.
That movie...
Stardom movie.
Slaps. That movie slaps. And it's all because of the fact that it is a movie not only about this incredible story, and yes, it only gets made because, David Lowery knows Robert Redford, but it's also because it's a movie kind of about the legacy of Robert
Celebrating
Redford.
Robert.
It's kind of like David Lowery's Irishman in some
Hell
ways.
yeah. It's a great movie. And here's the other thing about him. None of your picks created a freaking film festival that finances
very external factors.
I'm telling you, that changed the movie industry. Oh, and also, by the way, he's not just
Italian dressing film festival.
He's not just a creator of the Sundance Film Festival. He also directed one of the great Best Picture winners of all time in Ordinary People. So there you go. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I don't need to look at the rest of his directorial efforts because they're not really that great. But he did that. Not many
Out of
people
Africa
can do
as well.
No, that was Sidney Pollack.
That was Sidney
he's
Pollack.
in that.
Yeah, he's in that. Yeah, I forgot if he directed that.
Yeah. And he's opposite Meryl Streep, who is also
on your list. I sense.
What's
I
kind of funny
guarantee
is
you
most of our actors that we've chosen, you can connect the dots to them being.
This is kind of a 6 degree of separation exercise.
I'll just tell you this though, and this is my last point about Robert Redford. If he wanted to come out of retirement, he should be in the new Nancy Meyers movie. That's all I'm going to say. That's
a good point.
The other
he would be great.
Yeah,
he would be great in a Nancy Meyers movie, and you freaking know it because he would just have that smile of his that he has in.
I actually just want to look up how many of these people have been in Nancy Meyers movies.
I don't know if many of them have.
Denzel and Tom Hanks have not, and that's the point you should have against them because he rather have done.
That would be a great top 5 list.
Denzel didn't want to be in a Nancy Meyers movie because he rather do Two Guns with Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Great top 5 topic would be actors we want to see in a Nancy Meyers movie.
Yeah. Number 1 is all of them.
Are y'all gonna? So it's Nancy Meyers. Is anybody gonna take Lindsay Lohan?
Oh yeah.
No, but I actually really love her in The Parent Trap. I think she's really good in that movie.
But anyway, Robert Redford, nothing cool. It speaks for itself.
No,
Right,
I mean
awesome.
Robert Redford. He's one of those guys too who's a great actor and a great movie star, and he's also just second as far as peak attractiveness. I would put him second behind only Harrison Ford, in my opinion, and that is debatable.
That's where we're getting into tastes. Yeah, it's really
exactly.
Everyone's got
Brendan. If you don't think that Harrison Ford and Robert Redford are smoking hot aces, you got.
I did not say they weren't good-looking guys. I just said it's all a matter.
If you're
of
voting
taste.
in the poll, he is anti-good-looking men. Is what Brendan.
Which is funny because I'm going with a good-looking man for my number 4 pick after your conversation.
All right, here we go. I can't wait to hear what it is.
I wasn't
Chris
sure.
Pine. It's finally Pine
Jimmy
time.
Stewart. Let's go.
Not a Chris. It's not a Chris. But after what you were just saying there about Robert Redford, Ryan, I wasn't sure who I was going to pick next for my number 4, but I guess keeping in the spirit of like this whole 6 degree of separation exercise, how everyone's connected to something. My favorite version of the Great Gatsby stars Leonardo DiCaprio. So that's who I'm picking.
Here he comes.
Yeah.
There he is. I knew it. That's fine.
The thing about DiCaprio is that, first off, he has this suaveness that kind of like aesthetically bridged the gap between old Hollywood and new Hollywood, which is so interesting. That made him kind of a unique presence on screen. But an actor has star power when there is this huge narrative supporting him, like, oh, will he finally win an Oscar for this movie? Oh, will he finally win an Oscar for this movie? And that, I felt like that narrative was part of his life ever since, I don't know, maybe just after Titanic, when he wasn't even nominated for it, which I think is just interesting. So, DiCaprio, he just has one of those names that the second you hear that name, you think of the movies. And a lot of those, and the way that Scorsese took advantage of him. And when an actor can become some director's muse like that, we talked about that with De Niro already, and how he was basically Scorsese's muse for so long. DiCaprio became that for Scorsese, who is arguably the greatest American filmmaker of all time. So just that criteria alone, I felt like I needed to at least acknowledge Leonardo DiCaprio. DiCaprio. Again, my favorite iteration of The Great Gatsby. I know Ryan would probably kick me in the nuts for that one.
I would.
But yeah, it's my favorite Baz Luhrmann film.
I think you're choosing from the bottom of a particular barrel on that one.
Well, I mean, I'm not the biggest Baz fan, but I kind of like that movie. I think it's one of the
I think he's just talking about the property itself.
Oh,
yeah, I'm saying just there hasn't been a Great Gatsby. There's
been a great Gatsby.
Yeah.
Well, now it's like IP, isn't it? Like open IP now. So like we're gonna get like a
public domain. We're gonna get
public domain. Yeah,
a
MCU
Gatsby universe,
Great Gatsby. That'll be good.
A Gatsverse, whoever you want to call it.
But you spoke, Brendan, about kind of how his career was all about when is he going to get his Oscar. You know who had a pretty parallel track in his career was Pacino, where it was like, he's in Godfather, he's in Godfather 2, he'll get one eventually, we don't have to give it to him for this one. And then he had his 80s, and they're like, oh my god, we never gave Pacino an Oscar, are we ever going to get to do it again? Then he's in Scent of a Woman, and they're like, I mean, he's in this movie, I guess we got to give him an Oscar.
Who
else
we should have given him 3 others before. And then next thing you know, Pacino's like, wait, you're rewarding me for just going hoo-wah! I'm just going to keep doing that for the rest of my career. And it broke him.
I mean, in many ways, the hoo-wah, at least the inflection of that, kind of also inspired, I feel like I'm going to get bleeped out by saying this, but big ass I
said the F word twice tonight, so it's not like
that is true. But DiCaprio, it was the same thing where it's like he's in Titanic in this great kind of movie star intro performance. He's in something like Catch Me If You Can. He's in The Departed. He's in The Wolf of freaking Wall Street. And then they're like, I guess we got to give it to him for The Revenant. I mean, he deserves one.
I do like him in The Revenant.
He wasn't nominated for
I think he's very good in The Revenant, though.
Yeah. Well, I will say that
good in The Revenant, but it's
not my favorite.
That's a movie where it's like we're rewarding
that
for
lineup,
the athleticism of that performance, which is
of that lineup. He's the clear winner for me. Or maybe Fassbender for Jobs, but like not.
I have to go back and look at the lineup.
Should have won for who won the Wolf of Wall Street year?
So Matthew McConaughey for Dallas Buyers Club.
I mean, I'm glad McConaughey won one. So holy,
Brendan, you don't need to look it up. I'll tell you. It was Eddie Redmayne for The Danish Girl. It was Matt Damon for The Martian. It was Fassbender for Steve Jobs. It was Bryan Cranston for Trumbo. And then it was Leo for The Revenant.
I mean, that's a layup.
Yeah. I mean,
that is a layup.
You want to know why he won? Because there weren't other good performances really nominated against him of quality wise. That's why he won. And the movie made $500 million worldwide. Like, it was weirdly a phenomenon because he's a movie star, for Christ's sake. You know what I mean? So,
he's one of the 3-ish guys left.
Yeah.
Who are the movie stars? Who are like the true blue movie stars left? It's DiCaprio,
Cruise.
It's Cruise.
I mean, I don't know if I want to say any of them yet because they might I don't know if anyone's going to pick any of them for their fifth spot.
I'm not saying
Brendan, you've got your last pick, so it doesn't matter if you say
my last pick. I think I'm going to go with my heart on this one for my last pick, which means I'm probably going to lose this entire draft, but I kind of want to veer a little bit outside the box here. My last pick is not one of those last remaining movie stars. I'll simply say that. Now, this is someone that I would say is absolutely a movie star, but you might argue, if we're looking at Hollywood specifically, is this person really a movie star? Did they?
Oh, I know who you're picking.
Do you know who I'm picking? We'll see about this.
Yes, I
do. Okay. Did this person that you're thinking of, did they just celebrate a birthday?
Oh,
yesterday?
I don't know about that.
Okay, because it was all over Twitter that this person's birthday was on April 1st. I'm picking Toshiro Mifune.
Yep, that's who I thought you were picking.
Is that who you thought? Okay. Yeah, level of stardom, maybe not the same level of stardom as most of Hollywood, despite being one in Japan. But let's look at the track record here as far as stardom in these movies. Rashomon, Seven Samurai, Throne of Blood, Yojimbo, High and Low, arguably some of the greatest movies ever made. But of course, you have to attribute that to the fact that he's working with one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, Akira Kurosawa. So that certainly has a play. But Toshiro Mifune also worked alongside filmmakers in Japan like Kihachi Okamoto and Masaki Kobayashi, and even, worked with John Borman in the film Hell on the Pacific, which was a two-man show between Mifune and Lee Marvin, I think, and even got to play in a Spielberg movie, Spielberg's worst movie, but still a Spielberg
he was in 1941.
movie. He was in 1941. So he has some range there, but it's hard to disregard someone that has that kind of presence in a string of movies in the 1950s and early 60s that are all among the greatest movies ever made. And that could be said about a lot of the actors and actresses that we talked about on our lists already. But I mean, that track record's pretty amazing. And he does represent that star power that we look for in an actor, just more so representative overseas, Asian cinema specifically here. So I guess it does veer into maybe a different market, but as far as cinephile markets are concerned, like, this guy is absolutely a movie star. I love Toshiro Mifune. So maybe this will make me lose the draft. It's a bit of an obscure pick, at least comparatively to what we've been talking about, but I don't know. I'm going with my heart on this one. I love Mifune.
He's sitting right here on my list. He's at number 10. So
okay.
He's one of my top 10 movie stars of all time. It's a great pick.
That's a good pick.
How do you not pick the guy who was Akira Kurosawa's go-to guy?
Yeah.
That's the other thing. If they're a muse of someone's, we talked about that with De Niro and DiCaprio.
Yeah, totally.
So that's another criteria here, I guess, that we just discovered.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's my 5. That rounds out my my 5. I'm done.
It's a good 5.
So Ryan, it's back to you.
Oh man, this is tough. I haven't taken anyone modern. I haven't taken anybody modern because you.
Well, to be fair, Robert Redford was, of course, he's a member of the MCU.
Yeah. So is Harrison Ford about to be too.
True.
Yeah. I'm going to take him because when I was growing up, and I still think of him now, this guy was a movie star. And at times I would like, that's like, if he's in that movie, that I know that movie's going to be big. I know I need to see that movie. And he's still a movie star nowadays. And he's got the looks, and we've talked about him. We talked about him a lot because he's had a collaborator before. Jay and I have talked about him on our Soderbergh series a lot.
Okay.
I'm going George Clooney. I'm going Clooney.
Wow. This was who I was wrestling with for my 5th spot.
I think
attractive list, Ryan.
Yeah, I know what I'm about. I mean, I'm going to say this is that I think Clooney is also one of those last movie stars we have.
Yeah, I agree.
Except if you don't believe want to make movies anymore.
Exactly. That's the thing.
That's the irony with that, for sure.
That's the irony. Well, it's like, yes, he doesn't, but then it's also like he finally grew the hell up. You know what I mean? And it's like, and now as a father and, and settle down and everything, but he's one of the most charismatic confident old school movie stars we have left. I could have taken Cary Grant, Clark Gable, Jimmy Stewart. I could have taken any one of those. I could have taken one of those classic ones. And I know that we didn't really take a lot of classic ones today, and I'm
Some honorable
very
mentions
apologize
at the
for
end
that.
of this.
A
Yeah.
lot of honorable mentions, but he embodies all that just from that elevator, coming up the elevator in the beginning of Ocean's 11. Like when you think about George Clooney, you just think about that smile, that confidence, the swagger about him. But then I think about also too, it's not just movies like Out of Sight and Ocean's 11 where he has that persona. It's then I think of a movie like Fantastic Mr. Fox, or I think of a movie like Michael Clayton, which is an all-time film for me. And the reason why is because he's bringing this movie star vulnerability, and that is a movie that does not get made if it does not have George Clooney at the front of it. It's just like, seriously, a legal thriller in 2007 that has like that Tilda Swinton is a name, but not like she won her Oscar after that and became even more of a household name. Tom Wilkinson, great actor, but is not going to carry the bill. It's Clooney doing that. And then obviously a lot of his humanitarian work, obviously being a director, Good Night and Good Luck. I like Ides of March. I know that some of his films are not great. Not everyone's not actors or directors are really great, but a lot of actors love working for him. He's also a producer. He produced another Best Picture winner in Argo. So he's got a very good mix of I'm a superstar, I'm a movie star, I'm going to inject myself here, and they feel authentic. And I think for a long, long time, we took George Clooney for granted because now, Jay, you're right. We're sitting here going, where the hell is he? Because we need George Clooney's right now. And I
the
think
Midnight Sky. Yeah. But that,
well, I
yeah,
mean,
it was kind of a minor effort.
Sure,
but then like he comes back and, but then, like, look, Ticket to Paradise is nothing great, but I'll tell you what, it was a big hit. Him and Roberts coming together, and he looked like he had fun doing it. And he's, I think, working with Pitt on some film coming up next from, I think, John Watts or something, maybe. I don't know. But I hope that like in the next decade to come, he's got the ability to start working with some of these younger directors. I mean, obviously, his work on like Solaris too is great as well in the past, and his relationship with Soderbergh. So I don't know. I love Clooney, and I love what he is because he's like another last traditional movie star we have. And yeah, he's a box office draw for sure. It's him, Leo, and Cruz are part of that. And then like there's some female stars as well that are still there too.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I really thought about taking Clooney for at least my number 5 pick, I even thought about maybe taking him earlier, is that when you look at modern movie stars nowadays, I feel like, and when I say modern, I mean like 2000s onward, maybe like the past 20 years, in our lifetime specifically, he sort of like visually represents what we think movie stars should look like. And I don't mean that as a disrespect to him as a talent, because he's a very talented individual, but it's the charm, the suaveness, the talent, the good looks, the amazing hair. As far as hair and good looks are concerned, he is one of the greatest male actors working. I mean, even the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou made that kind of one of his characteristics. Like one of his traits was how much he was obsessed with his hair pomade. And so that kind of played into that. So, but yeah, like a movie like Out of Sight, that trunk scene between him and Jennifer Lopez, that right there is that is like the creation of movie stardom. Like that's how a movie scene creates movie stars.
Hell yeah.
And like at least it certainly worked for Clooney in that regard, and what came afterwards in the early 2000s and mid 2000s as well. I love Clooney. I think he just visually represents what we expect from movie stars.
Plus he works with the Coens.
Yeah.
I think also too he's
got a good taste in filmmakers.
Yeah,
he does.
I think he's in Reitman's best work and Up in the Air, and it's because
I really like
of
Up in the Air.
Because of Clooney's work there, and I think even his little work with Corone and Gravity is really good too. Like I like him in that, and I want to see him in more like Hail Caesars because I thought he was hilarious in that. And that's
Yeah,
the
I
other
liked him
thing
a lot.
too.
Yeah.
He's not just dramatic and he's not just in these other things too. He's hilarious. He's got a good sense of humor that goes with it too. He's very versatile and he's okay with taking the butt of the joke. Plus, he's a Hollywood prankster. He's a Hollywood prankster. Like he's taking
He's an
stationery and doing all these
amusing
different things.
individual.
People
Yeah, I love
working with him. And yeah, I mean, he's worked with Pitt and Damon and all these other guys that, you know, sort of helped and propped them up. Like those Oceans films are almost like, I'm a movie star, I'm going to help my friends out. But then like by the end of those, theirs started to become just as big as him.
Well, yeah. The crazy part of those movies is that is like an all-star team of movie stars and he's the captain.
Yeah. And he's like, let me pick out of here. You know what I mean? And so,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I know that like he behind the camera is wishy-washy. And I believe he got didn't he get the award from you, Jay? The Robert Zemeckis Please Stop Award?
Yeah, stop directing movies, please.
But then
go back to being in them.
He made
I know you got all that tequila money that you're sitting on, but
that's the thing. He's a very wealthy man, and he's now got a very happy life. But I do feel like in a decade or like over this next decade, I think he'll start creeping out a little bit more. I got faith in him that he's going to do it because the itch is still there, and you know, I don't think he just wants to collect lifetime achievement awards. You know what I mean? So, yeah, Clooney.
That rounds out your list. You're done. You're done.
Wow.
Jay's got one more pick left.
Last pick. Okay, I guess I can totally talk through my thought process here because nobody else is going to pick anything. But there are probably three gentlemen I am split between here. One of them is one of the great actors of the 70s. One of them is a Hollywood legend. And the other one, I guess, is an old school Hollywood legend as well. The three gentlemen I'm thinking about are Gene Hackman, Cary Grant, and Jimmy Stewart.
Interesting.
Those are the three staring me in the face.
Well, what's your gut telling you? We can't make that decision for you.
You know what you want to do.
I'm going
There's
Gene
a reason
Hackman.
why we did that.
I'm going Hackman.
I knew you were going to do it. Yeah, go Hackman.
I kind of thought you were going to go that way.
We talk about all these movie stars. We talk about these irresistibly handsome gentlemen. The 1970s was a time where you didn't have to be irresistibly handsome to be a movie star, right? And there is a certain appeal to Hackman, Redford, but it's not in the same way that George Clooney appeals to people or Denzel, right? Hackman had this innate kind of grumpy charisma to him that put him in films like The French Connection and The Conversation, where he was truly one of the biggest movie stars on the planet in the 1970s. And that brings him to these movies where it's like, well, yeah, we have Gene Hackman in it, so we can make Hoosiers, you know?
Yeah.
And then Hoosiers becomes this huge hit against all odds in some ways. And then you move forward and you have films like The Quick and the Dead, which is this film where Sam Raimi's like, well, will you give me the money if I have Gene Hackman? And they say, yeah, absolutely. And then Sam Raimi gets to make a Sam Raimi movie. Gene Hackman hated Sam Raimi. They had a terrible time working together.
Yeah.
But either way, you end up creating this very effective movie. And then you have him going kind of toe to toe with one of the other great movie stars of all time, Clint Eastwood in Unforgiven. Hackman's arc is a very interesting one. It's kind of more along the lines of Pacino, although he was probably never quite as famous as Pacino was. But the thing with Hackman for me, if you look at it on the scale of movie star and great actor, it's like you got Nicholson to me is like right here, evenly balanced, so good at both.
Yeah.
Hackman is kind of more leaning towards great actor than
even
truly all-time movie star.
It may depend on the decade, honestly. There's some
in
decades
the 70s,
I feel like
he was truly massive.
Yeah.
I mean, the French Connection was enormous. The Conversation was actually like a genuinely really big hit. He's in the Superman movies.
Yeah.
He's a really important figure. And then he kind of goes through this lull. And then you see this revitalization in the 90s. And with one of my other picks, Denzel, Tony Scott, in things like Crimson Tide, an incredible film that is just two huge movie stars going head to head in these philosophical debates about nuclear warfare. It's incredible. Then how about another one a few years later, Enemy of the State, where he's having these same conversations with Will Smith. And then another one with another huge movie
Behind
star.
enemy lines.
He kind of became the hand the baton off to another movie star guy with The Firm.
Yeah, and then he's doing
That takes
Runaway
power.
Jury. You know,
Yes,
Yeah, John
exactly.
Cusack. Yeah.
Royal
And then he's also a guy
Tenenbaums.
that can get a movie made for a Mike Nichols. You know, I mean, him and Robin Williams within The Birdcage. I think he was a huge part of getting that movie made. And then, of course, a film we talked about recently in our best movies about fatherhood. How about The Royal Tenenbaums? A movie that
so great, so good,
annihilates. And
Yeah, and
he
then
is
don't
to
forget
me
Mo-
one of
don't
the
forget
absolute greatest actors of all time. And he was at a certain point just a free way to make a movie. You got Gene Hackman in it. Yeah, we'll make your movie. Absolutely.
Yeah, the only reason why Mooseport didn't work, Ryan, was because Ray Romano never became a big hit.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, he got stuck
was-
with Everyone Loves Raymond. But even some of those movies that we don't really talk about anymore with Gene Hackman, like what was it, Heist, the David Mamet film, which
Heck yeah.
I haven't seen in a while, but I remember seeing when it first came out, and I thought this was kind of a badass thriller. It's a pretty good movie.
I mean,
But then, like,
Get
Hackman's-
Shorty. Good movie.
Oh yeah, good
Yeah,
movie.
he's- How about Hackman in Unforgiven playing just the most diabolical, bastard on the planet? Like,
But
he's
is he
so good in
really
it.
though?
in
Like
that
that's a
movie.
very nuanced performance.
It is, but he's so good in it.
He's great in it, yeah.
I mean, I think he is, but like he's
the villain, then
you're
circles
rooting-
to become the hero, then circles back to be the villain again, depending on perspective.
Yeah, it's very complex.
really interesting.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, like, yeah, he's a guy that, you know what, I say this a lot, and I really mean this, but like, it's the kind of level of like a movie star of like Hackman is that of like Philip Seymour Hoffman, in that he is
But
so
the movie
respected.
star version of him.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Hoffman.
Well, this was the
but
conversation I was having with my brother earlier as I was preparing for this. I was like, we're doing a thing on our greatest movie stars of all time. And he was like, oh, that's interesting. What are you thinking about like criteria? And I was like, so think about it this way. Philip Seymour Hoffman might be my favorite actor of all time, but he's not a movie star. And
No,
like,
he's not a
"Oh,
movie
okay."
star.
Right.
But it's not. But it's also we're talking about like unfair rules because like Hackman's had years on him to do that, and but
I
also
don't think
too
Philip
the thing
Seymour
about,
Hoffman will be making any movies anytime soon, I must say.
that's what I'm saying.
Oh, that
It's
was
just like,
harsh. That was
Yes.
harsh.
That's-
Oh man,
that's what I'm saying. Is
that
that like
hurt, man. That
in
hurt.
in still like, and that's this is the truth. This is like Hoffman probably had a couple more in the prime best performances of his career, type of banner performances.
Yeah, but
still left
Hoffman
in him.
or Hackman was a movie star when he was 35.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I'm not trying to get into the Philip Seymour Hoffman debate with you, but like the man was like a small actor and then turned in and then won an Oscar and started getting into stuff way later in his life. You know what I mean? But
that's a true question. Like if you win a lead actor Oscar, when do you become a movie star? Are you not a movie star if you win a best actor Oscar? I don't know what the answer to that is. I personally would say if you asked me the question, is Philip Seymour Hoffman a movie star? My gut instinct would be to say no, but he does have a best actor Oscar.
I think he's more like you talk about that pendulum, Jay, between great actor versus great movie star. I think Hoffman does veer more towards great actor.
True.
Like nobody picked Daniel Day-Lewis, which is,
but also
yeah, that's
I think this about Daniel Day-Lewis, and I almost took him, but I almost took him too. The reason why is like, okay, Daniel Day-Lewis is arguably, if we were doing the best actors or best actors, women and men included, he would be high up on my list to take. And his impact is, I mean, shit, Brian Cox won't shut up about it. Like his impact of method acting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, it's like he's so picky with his roles, and he's got 30 of them, and they're great. But also, guys, not like in terms of box office, the biggest draw, but it goes back to what we were talking about with Adam Driver.
Yeah.
His name alone gets you there, but he's also worked with a ton of directors that are big enough already so that like he's working with
kind of like Daniel
Michael
Day-Lewis's
Mann
name will
and
get you an extra $20 million.
$20 million.
Yeah. But it does carry that reputation, like that. You're gonna see a great performance, and maybe that does translate into stardom because it has that greatness reputation. I know we're running low on time. I do want us to get to at least a few other honorable mentions, or at least a few that we were considering that didn't quite make our list. So why don't we just throw out a couple names that were either close, that we think should have been considered, especially for those of our watchers and listeners out there who might be yelling at us. How did you not take so-and-so? How did you not pick so-and-so? Yeah. Because there's still plenty of actors out there we could have easily considered for this top 5.
Yeah, Brando.
I
thought
about
John Wayne is another one I thought about, which
Humphrey Bogart,
yep. Joaquin Phoenix.
I brought up Cary Grant, Jimmy Stewart, Clint Eastwood. How about a little fella by the name of Charlie Chaplin? Hello.
Yep. Yeah. Buster Keaton, Audrey Hepburn,
Sean Connery,
Nicolas Cage. I almost took Nicolas Cage.
Nick Cage. Yeah.
The entire
Julia
cast
Roberts,
of Ocean's 11.
Yeah. Julia Roberts, Sandra Bullock, Matt Damon, Brad Pitt.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Yep.
Keanu.
Morgan Freeman.
Yep.
Almost you could go to the action realm. Schwarzenegger. Stallone.
I had a question for you guys. Blanchett.
She was on my long list.
Yeah. She came close.
Good for an honorable mention. She blends a lot of genres. She does a lot.
Yeah.
I think she's kind of in that Daniel Day-Lewis realm to me, where it's phenomenal performer. She will get a lower budget movie made by herself.
Yeah.
She gets a tar made.
Yeah.
Exactly.
One that I almost considered was Marilyn Monroe, but I felt like this was kind of meant to be a celebratory look at these actors and their movie stardom, and she was kind of an unfortunate product of that.
Yeah.
And I felt like it didn't seem right. It almost felt disingenuous to pick someone like that, so I didn't pick her. But again, if we're talking about movie stars and who represents stardom, she certainly did, and she was very talented, a very talented and funny actress too. And I wanted to at least throw some love her way.
I thought about Betty Davis, Joan Crawford.
Yeah,
I mean these icons. I mean Ingrid Bergman.
I got Grace Kelly on my list as well.
Grace Kelly.
Yeah.
I've always said one of my worst traits is loving Mel Gibson as a movie star. How about Fred Astaire or Gene Kelly?
Yeah.
I
mean,
Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger never got the chance to be one, but still he could have.
Yeah. Sidney Poitier.
Hello.
Yeah. I think someone mentioned him too.
Oh,
yeah.
All right, well, we threw out a bunch of names there, people we could have considered, but let's wrap this up by going through our list once again just to finalize these. We will throw this up on social media. We'll have a bit of a competitive streak here. Maybe this will be our poll that we'll reveal on next week's show, but my 5 were Katharine Hepburn, Robert De Niro, Tom Cruise, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Toshiro Mifune. Ryan, who are your 5 again?
I had Paul Newman. Heard of him? Al Pacino, maybe. Meryl Streep, pretty big deal. Robert Redford, GOAT level stuff already. And then George Clooney.
And I had Jack
no one cares.
Nicholson, Harrison Ford, Denzel Washington, Tom Hanks, and Gene Hackman.
All great lists there. We will throw these up on Twitter at some point soon for all of you to vote who had the best draft picks. Let us know how your picks stack up against ours as well. You can email us at InSessionFilm@gmail.com. But specifically in this case, follow us on social media, especially on Twitter at InSessionFilm, where you can say which one of us here did the best job. I think it was a pretty competitive and well-rounded conversation. I'm really curious to some really good lists. Really curious to see how this shakes up. And like I said, we'll probably use this maybe as next week's poll. So we'll get to those results maybe in about a week and see how that goes, which is a nice transition to say we would usually transition to this week's poll on this episode, but we don't have one. And I think for the sake of time, it's probably good. I actually, in all transparency, forgot to do one this week, just the week that I had. So I guess it works out nicely that we had this lengthy conversation talking about movie stardom. And it was a great conversation. Before we conclude this week and show a few plugs here, we will have a full review coming soon of Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. That'll be released either just before or after this episode, most likely just after. But it will be myself and Ryan McQuaid talking about some Dungeons and Dragons there. Also be on the lookout for episode 529 next weekend, which I think at this point it'll most likely be inspired by Ben Affleck's Air, which I think it makes the most sense. It's going to be either that or the Super Mario Brothers movie. And I would be rather disappointed if we decide to inspire off of Super Mario Brothers. I'd
Best
rather
movies
talk
about Air.
Well, best movies about air. Yeah.
Up in the air.
But in all seriousness, we do have to pick a topic for that. But maybe some ideas we can throw around are maybe best movies that originated from the Blacklist, which this movie did. Might be a fun topic there. But be on the lookout for that. Air will be the.
It's like a lot of research.
There's a lot of research.
Sounds like something right up Jay's alley because he loves research.
Yeah. But the movie Air will be the dare I say, heir apparent when it comes to episode 529. It'll be inspired.
Jay's influence is really rubbing off.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But yeah, be on the lookout for that on 529 next weekend. Also, we have a new Women in Session out where Kristen Battistella and Zeta Short discuss their cinematic blind spots. They have a great conversation there talking about the things that we as film critics need to be talking about. There are two very important things, right? As a film critic, we have to know to admit when we're wrong and which our blind spots are, which are very important conversations to have. And they have those conversations on blind spots on that latest episode. As far as movie series topics are concerned, boys, Wong Kar-wai, how's it going? What's next on the docket?
Jay, you want to tell everybody?
Well, I would just first like to say that we had a truly, maybe the best episode we've ever done on Ashes of Time, where Ryan seems to be actively avoiding talking about the movie. So
I know what you're talking about. Kind of like how I'm actively avoiding it right now by letting you do the runoff here. This is great.
Yeah, Ryan, just if you could give like 5 words on your...
And that is how you pivot.
Thoughts on Ashes of Time. No, our next film in the series is going to be Fallen Angels, which I'm very excited to watch. I haven't seen it yet.
It's a blind spot for me as well.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to talking about it longer than we did the last one.
Yeah, Brendan, we were having the debate. Do you think Ashes of Time is the least seen movie ever reviewed on InSession Film?
I have to go back through the archives, but at least...
What is that? What is that fourth or like the fifth option that we did for that?
Ryan,
Alan Pressburger
you know what might be the least seen? What was that movie you had us review about the river?
Oh, the border crossing film, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you talking? Are you
it's
talking
not even about border
movie?
crossing. It's about just the preserving
wall,
the
right?
river
in the wall.
Yes,
is what it was called. But I wasn't even talking about like that. I was like in a movie series is what you mentioned. Like,
well, maybe that. Yeah, in a movie series, I would say for sure, no doubt.
I thought it would have been like that war film that we did during the Alan Pressburger movie series that doesn't exist. That we watched and probably
Canterbury Tale.
Was that a Canterbury Tale?
Yeah, that's much more seen than Ashes of Time.
Well, I think among cinephile circles for sure. Yeah,
Canterbury Tale,
Ashes of Time
that's
is a
in the
movie
Criterion collection, isn't it?
I think so.
I was just talking about in like general of like, I don't know, people wanting to watch that.
I mean, because Ashes of Time, that's not even available really anywhere. Like that's a hard one to find, and that's how you can kind of gauge if it's one of those.
It hasn't been kept up in any way. Yeah,
yeah.
Ryan loved it. I'll say that.
Honestly, if we do a top 5 around that next week, it's going to be in my number 1 spot. Like it's
actually
it's a great movie.
For the record, if you go listen to the episode, I like the movie.
Okay. Yeah,
it's
a great conversation as far as
this week.
Yeah, looking forward to that. But yeah, the Ashes of Time review, if you want to call it an Ashes of Time review, it was a great conversation.
We discussed things.
You discussed things, and some of those things included Ashes of Time. Most of those things included other things.
Hey, you got to give the people what they want.
But yeah, be sure to check that out, the movie series for Wong Kar-wai going strong. Of course, for those of you listening and watching, you can follow us on social media at InSession Film. You can also subscribe to us here on YouTube. And we're also available on your favorite podcast app of choice. You find us there, leave us a rating, leave us a review, let us know how we're doing. We really appreciate that feedback. And also be sure to hit us up on Patreon for exclusive content that you can receive there. Final thoughts on anything, gentlemen, before we conclude this episode?
Movies rule, movie stars rule, and I still hate Jay for taking Denzel Washington.
I was going to say, how long is this resentment going to last?
Weeks!
I'll say this. I watched the women's basketball national championship today. LSU's coach, very annoying. Caitlin Clark, absolute fraud. Boom.
Wow. And that concludes our episode of InSession Sports, which can be another rabbit hole in and of itself. But anyway, yes, for those of you listening, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed our movie stars draft. It was a lot of fun. Let us know how we did. We'll see y'all next time on the InSession Film Podcast. Go UConn!
Lowe's knows how to get your lawn ready for spring. And right now, you can take up to $10 off select Scott's fertilizers. Plus, you can save $50 on a Craftsman 20-volt 13-inch string trimmer and leaf blower combo kit. Now just $99. Get set for spring. Visit us in-store or online today because Lowe's knows home improvement. Valid 3/23 through 4/5. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Excludes Alaska and Hawaii.